topical issue, Deputy Charlie McConalogue, concerns regarding the primary online database. Deputy McConalogue.
Thank you, Cahirla, and I'd like to thank the Ceann for selecting this issue, which is generating a lot of interest, and also to thank Minister of State English for coming in to take the issue here on the floor today as well. In principle, at the outset, Minister, I want to outline and confirm that my support for the development of a centralised information system for primary schools. But there are very serious concerns over the Minister's heavy-handed implementation of the Primary Online Database, or POD system as it is known, until now. She has done little so far to allay parents' concerns over the security of sensitive information on their children. Some very serious issues have been raised by parents and the wider public that their data protection rights and legal protections are being ignored by the Minister. Firstly, can I ask, is it the Minister's intention to threaten to decrease the capitation for schools or increase pupil-teacher ratio for schools where parents have made the decision not to allow their children's details onto the primary online database system? If a primary school, for example, Minister, in the case of a very small one, had 20 students and the families of 2 students didn't allow the information to be provided, would then that teacher lose, or that school lose a teacher as a result? Very serious issues have been raised with the level of security of the database. The Minister has previously tried to allay any data security concerns, stating that the data collected by POD will be encrypted on a central system, with access restricted to approved officials of the Department of Education. But the Minister has not addressed concerns over the security of individual schools' own computer systems. Since schools have to collect the data in the first place and transfer it to the POD system in the department, children's details may be kept on unsecure computers in schools that are not encrypted. Can the Minister guarantee who will have access to this highly sensitive data on our children? We are told that the collection process is secure due to a step-by-step system of transferring the data from schools' computers onto the departments. But how realistic, Minister, is the proposed new system? The department expects school staff to transfer this highly sensitive data to the Department of Education using a 17-step process so complex it's been dubbed by many principals as near unusable. In relation to the compliance with the Data Protection Act, Minister, it is questionable whether the POD system is in compliance with the Data Protection Act, and it's unclear whether the Data Protection Commissioner has given expressed approval of the system. We are told that the Department intends to gather sensitive private data on every primary school child in the country, including their racial profile, psychological assessments, special needs, their religion and PPS numbers, and store it until that student reaches the age of 30. I would question, Minister, why that needs to be the case. The Minister has stated that a Data Protection Commissioner has agreed to the data retention policy. But recently the Commissioner, referring to the proposed system, has publicly stated that, and I quote, "It seems to be the case that there is an inadequate explanation of why they need it and why they need to hold on to it for as long as they are holding it." Has this decision, Minister, over the retention of this data been made in consultation with the Data Protection Commission, and has the Commissioner given expressed approval for the retention of all the details that are being collected? Did the Data Protection Commissioner see the Department's circular on this matter?
Thank you, Deputy McConalogue. Minister.
Thanks very much, and thanks to the Deputy for raising this issue. When we get a chance to discuss it, and we put some of the concerns to bed. There's a lot of information out there. Parents are concerned. Also, some of it is misinformation and exaggeration in some parts of it as well. It has long been recognised that there is a need for individualised pupil information to be collected at primary level, and you acknowledge that yourself as well, in order to fulfil our requirements as a department to ensure that every child of a compulsory school age in the state is in receipt of an education, and to allow us to monitor the progress of pupils through the system so that we can develop evidence-based educational policy. Such a system has been called for from sources as varied as schools, the National Parents' Council, school management bodies and unions, Control and Audit in general, the National Economic and Social Forum, the Central Statistics Office and groups and charities working for children. The current system of record keeping and data collection means that information provided to the department from primary schools is quite often out of date by the time it is eventually processed and passed to areas that need it, such as the inspectorate, school governance, forward planning and various grant payment and teacher allocations. The proposed primary online database will allow the department to have access to timely and relevant information about the stocks and flows of pupils in our primary schools, which will aid us tremendously in carrying out our functions and providing the best possible service to schools and pupils. Moving to an electronic system will also help streamline administration at school level and to reduce from form filling, red tape and duplication of information requests, allowing school staff to focus more on their primary objectives of educating our children. Individualised student databases are now commonplace across the Irish education system, as well as in other countries. Individualised data coverage is already at place at pre-primary, post-primary and third-level education, and a system is currently being developed also to cover the further education sector. I understand that people have concerns about the confidentiality of the children's data. From the point of view of data security, this data will be accessible only by a small number of people in the department and is stored securely on a server protected by government firewalls. I know you raised genuine issues in relation to actually in the schools, so I might come back to some details around that as well to try to allay the fears there. The current retention policy for the primary online database, as you said, pod data for records is to be maintained up to the pupil's 30th birthday. In future, schools will no longer be required to keep the official pupil registration book in paper format. Therefore, POD will be the official register of pupils in schools, and so the data will be retained to allow pupils to obtain their official enrolment records in the future, should they require them for any reason. The Department will continue to review its retention policy for pupil data in consultation with the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, and there's still ongoing discussions around that. You've asked, is the Data Commissioner okay with everything here? I believe so, but there's also ongoing engagement around this as well, around the implementation of it. The Department's retention policy is for audit and accounting purposes, as pupils' data will be used in the allocation of teaching posts and funding to schools. The policy also serves to trace retention trends in the education system, is important for longitudinal research and policy formation, as well as being an important statistical indicator nationally and internationally. Aggregate and not individual data is used for the majority of these purposes. Just in relation to confidentiality, the Department takes it very seriously, and so the pupil data is stored securely in the Department's Oracle database. This database is hosted on the Department servers, which are located in the Revenue Commissioner's Data Centre in St John's Road. Access to the service is protected by both revenue and government firewalls. Staff of the Revenue Commissioners do not have access to the data of the database. The primary online database, or the POD application roles, have been developed, which limit school staff to viewing and maintaining their own pupil records. Access within the department to POD data is limited to the POD team, which is currently less than 15 people. No agency or other government department will have direct access to the primary online database. And I think that it's important that people realise the information is to be of use to help plan services as well. And I listen to a lot of the debate around the restoration of PPS numbers, or PP numbers, and people confusion around that, and even with the Irish Water, the whole debacle around that. But all of us in here know, as TDs and deputies, every day of the week, that's what we use in our offices. Every day of the week, with the hundreds of people we use in our offices, immediately the first thing you're given is a PPS number to help us do our work. So, yet, as practitioners, we're using every day of the week. But some people in this House use every occasion to stir up the people's emotions around PPS numbers and use of them. Yet, go into any TD's office, I guarantee you, one of the first things you're asked for is that number, because that is it's like your address in some ways, it's your identification number to get access to information which people use in all government departments. So, yes, we have to be secure how we use, there's data protection issues, it has to be all very important, but this hysteria that's generated over the use of PPS numbers, I think, I get it hard to take from some deputies who actually use the information themselves on a daily basis. I really do. But I have no problem with other issues of concern, and I think, Deputy, you're bringing up genuine concerns that need to be dealt with and explained, but I just want to address the PPS number issue as well, because it's exaggerated by people in this House who know well that it's what it's used for.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy McConalogue.
Thank you for the reply, Minister. And as I said at the outset, I am supportive of a database being put together and being developed for a primary school system, similar to is already in place at secondary school system. But there are genuine concerns that have been expressed to me, both by parents and indeed by teachers and school principals in particular, who are responsible for overseeing the collection of this data at primary level. And that's why I put to you today, Minister, the questions that I have done, seeking those reassurances, because I think there hasn't been clarity from the Department in relation to the development of this database, or in terms of the information being provided to both schools and parents of children in relation to the information that is being sought of them. And I don't find the answers that are being provided to me today as providing the type of reassurance and the full reassurance that I was hoping would come from having asked this question. Minister, I did put to you, and I know you've undertook to come back, in relation to how this information will be retained in schools internally in relation to their own computer systems. And I think it's very important, and I would ask that you would come back to me with further information in relation to that. I've also put to you, why is it that this information will have to be kept until that student is 30 years of age? Again, Minister, there hasn't been a response today as to why that is necessary. I don't see it myself, and that's why I'm asking for that, for an explanation, and I think we do deserve that, Minister. And the other thing as well I asked you, and it's because it's being asked of me, is would there be penalties on schools who are not in a position to provide the information that's been requested in the database because parents are refusing to give it? And as I outlined earlier, there is quite sensitive information. You mentioned PPS numbers, but also information in relation to a student's special needs, in relation to psychological assessments on students, and also in relation to the student's racial profile and background and religion. And people are concerned, and increasingly more so as time goes on, Minister, as to where their data is and how it's kept. And I would ask for answers on that, why it has to be kept so long, but specifically as well, as principals have been asking me, what happens when a family refuses to give that information? Will there be a penalty on the school in terms of the capitation to that school, or indeed in terms of the inclusion of that pupil in relation to the calculation of pupil-teacher ratio? And finally, Minister, as well, in relation to the financial support given to schools for this very onerous administration task that has been asked of them, I understand so far €1.50 per pupil is what is being allocated to schools. That simply does not match the level of work and effort that already overstretched, financially burdened schools have to undertake to actually collect this information, Minister. And can you confirm to me the level of subsidy being given to a school, or a grant being given to a school? Is it €1.50? How on earth did that calculation be arrived at? And will you revisit that, Minister?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
There's a couple of issues there, and some of I've already undertaken to come back with information to you, so we'll do that for the bits that I can't give you at the moment. The issue in relation to the collecting information on religion and ethnicity, in relation to culture and so on, this information is collected on an optional consent basis. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But that's just to be clear on that. Religion is collected solely for statistical purposes, and data collected on ethnic and cultural background will allow us to determine the effect of targeted educational interventions, be it around travellers' education or education for non-Irish who are arrived into it need some more support and so on. So it's for use, it's for genuine use, and to plan resources around that, and indeed to direct additional capitation grant funds to schools who would need it. So that's why it's there. It's not, it's important. I think you're sensible enough to know there's a reason behind information that has been collected to be able to plan and put resources in place. And I would say that you can see the benefits over the last couple of years for school planning, when now they're using proper data and actually planning schools. And in the past that wasn't done. Schools popped up at the whim of certain TDs or ministers in the past, not the proper way to do a system. Our education system has suffered in the past from lack of proper planning. You need data collection, you need information behind to be able to do that planning. That's what this is about, and that's what we're trying to bring in that as well. In relation to the keeping the information up until the age of 30, this will become your personal history. And which which people will want to use in future. I mean, we often go back into schools to get information or wrote from roll books in the past, or who was there, who wasn't. So it's part of that as well. That's part of the reason. It's an issue I believe that it's causing concern out there. I think we probably need to bring more clarity to that, so that can be dealt with as well. And I'll get that for you as well. In relation to the capitation grants, the issue here is that with the best will in the world, there's often duplication on the old system, and we're hoping that through this system that won't happen, and that we'll be able to have greater and clearer allocation of resources from the system as well. So hopefully that'll lead to that. There's some other issues that I can come back to at a later stage as well.